So, welcome to lecture 3 in the series on writing your documentary. This is meant to be a continuation of what we've already talked about, and it's really meant to be sort of a hands on discussion of what should be going into your actual script. And so, what I would ask you guys to do is to have your laptops open and to be writing creatively as I'm talking. So either write voiceover, go through your transcription and find those sound bites that you like the best. Start arranging those based on some of the things that we talk about in this final of 3 lectures on documentary script writing. It's a very short lecture, and a lot of it is repetition from what we had already talked about before. So let me move right in. Okay, so remember that documentary filmmaking and narrative filmmaking share uh, so many components in common, other than the obvious difference. One uses actors engaged in mimesis, the other uses real people talking about real life things that they experienced in their lives. So one is a lived process, the other one is an imitative process. But other than that, they're very similar, right? You want to have a story arc with an opening, a statement of dramatic need, a a dramatic arc in which we hit a climax, and then the downfall from that climax. And so you can think of so many great documentaries that follow that exact structure. I think Waiting for Superman is a great choice to look at. I think the film Black Sheep, which is a 2019 Academy Award short nominee, also has a very interesting structure as well, in which dramatic need and crisis and conflict and resolution are really carefully constructed. And then finally, reversal at the end, reversal and recognition, to Aristotelian terms that were originally designed to describe theater or poetry, but also fit incredibly well for narrative film and documentary film. The characters' reversal and their recognition of that reversal, or what they learned in the process. So, as you're going through and putting these scripts together, you should be collating and organizing all of your various elements. So, your great shots, your all of your sound bites, your voiceover script, things that you want to say. At first, it's really nebulous. It's really a large collection of information that hasn't yet been formed, and then you start to form it in your AV documentary script, which I talked about in the second lecture on screenwriting, using the AV script. And so at this point in the process, you're you're pulling together all of those pieces and trying to find a cohesive structure in that AV script before you go any farther. So you still know when you're in the writing phase what you need, what shots you have to get, what sound bites you have to get. You have a sense of how you're going to tell this story, what elements are going to be there. And so it's really important now to script all of this stuff out in advance. And we know, those of us that have made even a single documentary know that you don't know what you're going to get when you walk into your interviews, right? You have no idea how entertaining your guest will be, how articulate, how open. Are they going to be honest with you or not? All those things are wild cards when you're going in. Whereas when you're doing a narrative film, you write what you need in the screenplay, and then you cast actors who can deliver what you need. And so in narrative, it's a lot less. Uh, um, it's a lot more structured. You're better able to control where you're going in the storytelling. Whereas in documentary, it's kind of nebulous. You don't always know where you're going to end up when you start shooting. And that's one of the things that makes it so much fun. Um, I'm going to talk about structure in a second, remind you of some of the things that I mentioned in previous lectures. But I do think it's useful to have individual scenes in your film. And again, if you look at a film like Hoop Dreams or Black Sheep or Waiting for Superman, they all have individual scenes along a story arc that build towards the ultimate climax. So if we talk about a film like Hoop Dreams, right, you have freshman year in high school and the games being played and the trouble in class and the trouble at home. And each of those is an individual scene inside of this documentary narrative that's very much like a scene that you would see in an actual fictional narrative film. So little scenes put together in a logical and coherent story order that the audience can connect with and can dive into. And when you watch the film Black Sheep, I think you'll notice how that film uses scene after scene after scene in the main character's life, from when he was a teenage boy to now being an adult and looking backward at some of the things that he had to do as a teenager, A, to survive, and some of the things that he regrets having done to survive. So it's a fascinating construct, that film. And each of those individual moments are written as if they are a narrative uh, film. But we know from watching it that it's a documentary, but it's a documentary that kind of takes liberty with narrative, and that the character uh, is also played by an actor in the movie. So you have the real guy talking, and then you have an actor portraying him. So it's a film that kind of blends a lot of these elements in a really fascinating way. You should be writing your voiceover now. What do you need to say? And again, hopefully, when you watch Black Sheep, you'll see how that film uses voiceover narration to really tell us exactly what the story is. And it's a great blending in that movie of voiceover and other. Um, Hoop Dreams does that as well, where it uses some voiceover, but it also uses a lot more of the characters just talking in their natural environment. And then finally, the last thing to talk about is that uh, the documentary does have a structure that is sort of like a three-act structure: a beginning, a middle, and end, a setup, a conflict, and a resolution, a crisis. All those things that we normally use to kind of get our brains around what's happening structurally in a film are also in a documentary. So let's move forward and let's talk about our script structure. The first thing, and we mentioned this in a previous lecture, the first thing that you should be thinking about is your visual tease. And it would be helpful now if you write down some ideas of how you want to tease your movie visually. Usually it's the beginning few percent of the film. So if it's a narrative, if a documentary feature length, maybe the tease could be a minute or two long. If it's a short, the tease should be short as well. Then go into the body of the film. And I think in documentary, it's useful to have a thesis. And I find that the speech writing technique of problem uh, and cause, or cause and effect, or I like to actually combine those into one structure: problem, cause, and effect. So, what's the issue? What happened? What does it mean? I think that's a useful blending of some of these things that we study in rhetoric, and then that you can apply to filmmaking. Okay, and then after that, after you have presented all that in a way that helps us to really understand these characters and get into their lives and emote, express some emotion towards them, you get to your close, and in the close, you have a resolution of the story arc that you've presented. So if a character early in the film expresses dramatic need, I need to get into this program, I need to get into this cooking school, or I need to get a 1400 on my SAT, or I need to be recruited by University of Marquette's basketball program. Whatever it is, the character expresses that need early, and in the close, we see the resolution. Did they get it or not? Um, is the reversal a happy ending or a sad ending? Waiting for Superman is one that does this really well, where every character has their own resolution in the arc. And in each instance, we have a reversal moment that's either, strictly on Aristotelian terms, it's either a happy reversal or a really tragic reversal for each of the characters in the film. And then the last question I would ask you about script in this third lecture is, how are you positioning yourself in the movie? And we've talked about this in the past, You can see in all these different documentary examples that I've used today, and I haven't today talked about Michael Moore and the way he works, but you can see different examples of the producers putting themselves into the film in different ways in all of the documentary examples I brought up today. And so that's the decision that you make as an individual filmmaker. Where is your voice? Are you on camera, talking, being seen, interacting with the characters? Are you invisible, driving the narrative? Are you using no voiceover at all? Right? These are all the questions that a filmmaker has to ask when constructing their documentary script. So that's it for the third lecture in the series. Uh, Thank you